There's an article in The Guardian that I want to point out and begin with, and all we really need is the headline. The Guardian, panic and rash decision-making, ex-Bud Light staff on one of the biggest boycotts in U.S. history. The article goes on to elaborate, says, when Anheuser-Busch InBev, the multinational beer company, promoted Alyssa Heinerscheid to vice president of marketing for Bud Light in July 2022, she became the first female VP in the beer's 40-year history. It's just old white men, she says one former employee of the company leadership. That's why we were excited to at least have Alyssa in that role. In a March 2023 interview with the lifestyle podcast Make Yourself at Home, Heinerscheid spoke of her remit. And we've played that clip before. Alyssa Heinerscheid, that's the clip of the woke female Bud Light executive talking about how they want to change the branding of Bud Light so it's not just associated with white men and frat boys anymore. Want to make it more diverse. This was before the Dylan Mulvaney promotion happened. Instead of ensuring a prosperous future for Bud Light, Heinerscheid's tenure was marked by a sharp decline in sales and one of the biggest boycotts of a brand in U.S. history after a minor social media partnership with Dylan Mulvaney was attacked by right-wing anti-trans groups. Over the past month, The Guardian has spoken with insiders at Bud Light and the agency the company contracted about what exactly happened and why the brand refused to back Mulvaney during the backlash. Former employees who wish to remain anonymous spoke of leadership incompetence and said that executives were operating from a place of fear and were now vetting public comments under the brand's Instagram post to remove any hint of negativity. Anheuser-Busch did not respond to multiple requests for comments for this story. It goes on from there. We get the whole, it's a long story. We get the inside story from these various ex-Bud Light employees who are very upset that the company, from their perspective, caved to pressure from us right-wing bigots. And it was just chaos, and it was a disaster behind the scenes, and Bud Light bungled everything, every step of the way, they say, which of course they did. I mean, that part of it is true. But as I said, the most important aspect here can be seen just in the headline. One of the biggest boycotts in U.S. history. Which, first of all, there's a lot of lessons here that can be learned. A lot of lessons that Bud Light learned the hard way. Don't promote transgenderism is one of them. Another one is, as we hear, they were so excited. We got the first female VP. This is very exciting. It's diversity. We're embracing diversity. And pretty much admitting that they hired her purely for that, purely to sort of check off the demographic box. And her whole job is to promote the brand, is to market the brand. And then almost as soon as she, the first female in this position, almost as soon as she gets into that position, the company it tanks, is destroyed. She is there to oversee and to engineer the worst drop in sales in the history of the company. So that's what you get for your diversity initiatives. But it's also interesting just to see the media finally acknowledging, calling it one of the biggest boycotts in U.S. history. The media is finally acknowledging that. And you may remember that in the beginning, it was different. It's not how it was. They made fun of the boycott. The left did, the media did. They made fun of it as pathetic, toothless. There was a lot of skepticism for a long time that the boycott was actually, there was skepticism that it would accomplish anything. Skepticism from people on the left and the right, saying that this isn't going to go anywhere. But now even the hostile left-wing press admits that the boycott was historic, truly historic. I mean, there are very few examples of a major brand suffering these kinds of losses due to an organized boycott. And I actually can't think of any other example, period. I mean, we always talked about the Bud Light boycott being so significant because it was one of the few examples of a conservative boycott being successful. But it's actually one of the few examples of any boycott against a major brand being actually successful. The left generally has boycotted much more often, and they have the reputation of being more effective at it, and they are. Up until the Bud Light thing, they typically have the more effective boycotts. Not saying much, right? The bar is pretty low to be more effective. But boycotting, whether you're on the left or the right, doesn't matter. Boycotting a major, iconic American brand, it's not even really American anymore because it's not owned by an American company, but traditionally, historically American brand, boycotting something like that is a tall order. And to actually make an impact is very, very difficult. It rarely happens. To go as far as we were able to go with the Bud Light boycott and just destroy the company completely is an entirely different matter. So I guess my point here is partly it's I told you so. And I love to say I told you so. And by you, I don't mean you, the audience. I mean them, the left, the media, even the skeptics on the right who said the Bud Light boycott was a distraction, et cetera. And listen, people are allowed to be wrong about things. I've been wrong about things in the past. It may shock you to learn. So you're allowed to be wrong. But the people on the right, the conservatives who were kind of making fun of the Bud Light boycott early on, this is going to do anything, this is stupid, this is a distraction, you're not accomplishing anything. Those people, okay, and there are some prominent ones, trying to discourage it, say this is not, we shouldn't even be doing this. Those people on the right who said that. Now, I know a few of them have come along afterwards and said, you know what, I got this one wrong. You guys were right. The Bud Light boycott was great. But the ones who haven't acknowledged that, then I think you should keep that in mind because that is a major blow to their credibility. That this is, when we want to talk about impacts on the culture, it's one of the most impactful things that the conservative movement has done in modern history. And if you're a conservative and you weren't on our team and helping with that, then that's unfortunate. If you were trying to dissuade us from doing it, that's even more unfortunate. And if you still haven't admitted that, hey, I got that wrong, you guys were right, next time, I've learned my lesson, next time I'll be on board. You know what, I've learned that actually, the culture really does matter, obviously. And being able to exercise power over a major American brand, that's a big thing. That matters. I've learned that. So if someone acknowledges that, then that's one thing. But I think some of them haven't. Well, what I said at the time is that this was, and it is, it's an incredibly significant moment in history. It will be in the history books. This, again, a major iconic national brand brought to its knees, destroyed, not just by a boycott, but by a boycott from the side of the culture war that supposedly has no power and no purchase and no sway. A side that crucially believed, it itself believed that it had no power. Certainly didn't have this kind of power. And so what makes it so incredibly significant, it's two things. One, as I said all along, Bud Light, this is the head on the spike at the outskirts of town. It's a warning to other brands. This is what could happen to you. Okay, and if you are already an avowed left-wing brand, and this is what you do, and people expect it, and your customers are mostly left-wingers already, you could get away with it probably. If you're Ben & Jerry's or whatever, you can get away with it. But if you're a mainstream brand, and especially if you're a brand that relies on, average Americans, conservatives, you need our business, then you better be very careful. You better tread very lightly. You might think what you've learned in the past is that, you can virtue signal a little bit. You can throw a bone to the left and try to win some social credit points. And it's not going to hurt you on this side because your customers, because we're not, we'll be forgiving of that. Well, those days are over. We're not going to be forgiving of it. So that was the first thing that made it significant. And we immediately saw the cascading kind of domino effect. Of course, this happened right before Pride Month. And then we get into Pride Month. And then Target happens. And Target gets it's kind of a, not full Bud Light, but like a mini Bud Light treatment. And a lot of other brands did become, it was not, I think many people were expecting Pride Month in 2023 to be just a total historic explosion of rainbows everywhere. And it wasn't quite to the extent that many people were expecting. And the left noticed that too. There are a lot of articles written about how brands had a much more muted response this time around to Pride Month. Why? Because they're afraid, because they saw what happened to Bud Light. So that's the first thing that made it incredibly significant. The other thing is, because it's the message that's sent to corporate America. It's also the message that it sends to us, to the right, that we actually have this kind of power. We know we have the numbers. We have numbers. We know that there's millions of us. And that means something. We can use that to our advantage, but we have to use it. We have to organize and actually use it. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.